So moving on, we'll be going on to HavenCraft. So first we start with its legendary, and this is where things start to get broken, and I'll explain a lot of things. So the legendary here we have is 9 cost, 8/8, Heavenly Aegis. His skill can't be damaged, can't be affected by any other card's abilities except for those that change this card's attack or defense. So first, can't be damaged. Basically means his health will never go down via taking damage. Second, he can't be affected by any other card's abilities except for those that change this card's attack or defense. So things like your Forest Craft, the Dryad, or anything that lowers his attack or his defense, his maximum attack or defense will affect him. Anything else cannot target him. So he's basically very, very hard to kill. And that's why I've stressed on the necessity for few clears, for random target force removal, for the necessity of Bane in this new expansion, simply because of this guy. If you do not since he can't be damaged, you can't kill him the normal way of trading. Thus, he must be removed by a spell. But since you cannot target him, can't be affected by any other card's abilities except for those that change this card's attack or defense, which means anything like Dance of Death or Execution will not be able to affect him because it doesn't change his attack or defense. So only things like Thermis Decree, which literally destroys everything, or maybe Tribunal of Good and Evil, which has a random target, will be able to affect him. Anything else does not hurt him. So for something like this, you need to use Bane or perhaps banish everything. So that's the only few ways to remove him from the field. Other than that, he's got to be very sticky. So that's why I've stressed on the importance of Bane and all the force removal mechanics. But for HavenCraft alone, I'm sure he's got to be a very, very, very good addition. He's of course very playable, because if your opponent does not have an answer for him, your opponent basically is gonna be in for a world of pain, because this can trade into anything without taking any damage. He can hit to your opponent's face and your opponent can't stop him either, because they can't damage him. So that's it for Heavenly Aegis. It's just a very, very strong card, I feel. So next we have Dark Jean. I'm presuming this is Dark Jane of Arc. Doesn't matter. But she's a 6 cost 5/5. Slightly understated, but okay. Her fanfare is deal 2 damage to all other followers. So this includes your own followers as well. Then give +2/+0 to all other followers. It's kind of a double-edged sword, because deal 2 damage to all other followers means both yours and your opponent's followers all get 2 damage. Done. And then give +2 to all other followers also includes your opponent's followers. So it's really a double-edged sword here. If you have a wide board, then of course her skill will be more beneficial to you. But if your opponent, who's maybe playing something like Swordcraft and they have a full board of 5 followers, you might not want to play her, because you're giving her their entire board +2 attack, which can be potentially very dangerous. So her skill is a very risky skill, but may work out as like finishers if you have a wide board already in play. So interesting card, but I'm not sure how it will be played. So next we have a 8 cost Amulet, Tarnished Grail, countdown 3. Its fanfare is deal 2 damage to all other followers. Deal 2 damage to all followers, so both yours and your opponent. And its last word is randomly put 3 of the following 4 into your hand: Servant of Darkness, Silent Rider, Disdamnation, and Astaroth's Reckoning. So in case anybody doesn't know, Servant of Darkness is a 13/13 for 5 cost, which is a vanilla 13/13 for 5 cost. Silent Rider is a 8/8 with Storm for 6 cost. Disdamnation is a 7 cost spell that has the effect of deal 7 damage to anything, and then heal 7 damage for your face. And Astaroth's Reckoning is set your opponent's health to 1 for 10 cost. So this is the, I think, the second card or the third card that allows you to get the Prince of Darkness deck cards, excluding Prince of Darkness himself and Call of Cocytus. I'm not really sure this card is that playable because firstly, its fanfare isn't that strong. Deals 2 damage to all other followers, once again including your own, so you can weaken your own board as well. The second skill, Last Words, randomly put 3 of the following into your hand. The second skill is strong. Problem is you have to wait 3 turns for its countdown 3. And since it's also 8 cost, you'll be probably on the turn you put this down, you won't be able to play anything else. Thus, I'm not really sure of whether it's very viable in decks, because really, you might lose too much tempo just by playing this card, and yeah, not very sure about this card. So if it does pull off, and you do get these cards, it will be of course a strong effect, but whether you get it, you make it to the end of the 3 turns after this card is played is another thing. And also, since you have things like Petrification and the Lightning Bolt, this thing can be banished, so you essentially played 8 cost for nothing. Next, we have Judge of Retribution. He's a 6 cost 3/5. Fanfare, banish an enemy follower with 3 defense or less, then draw a card. So he's something like a Priestess of the Kurtgale when evolved. When you play him, he banishes a enemy follower with 3 defense or less. So and then after that you draw a card. So I guess it's pretty okay. He does work out pretty well in case you've run out of Blackened Scriptures and Priestess of the Kurtgales or Evolution points. So he does work out well as just a banish mechanic. And after that, he gives you a card draw, which is okay, I guess. The only thing I'm worried about is his stats are quite bad for a 6 cost card. But I don't think it's too bad. I think he can be run in several HavenCraft decks, no problem. So next we have Zoe, Queen of Goldinia. She's a 3 cost 3/4, which is she's overstated, surprisingly. And her skill, whenever this follower attacks, deal 2 damage to a random allied follower. Deal 2 damage to your leader instead if there are no other allied followers in play. So basically, whenever she attacks, you deal 2 damage to one of your other allied followers. If there are no other allied followers, you deal 2 damage to your leader instead. So this is what I've been noticing of the new trend for HavenCraft. There are a lot of cards that sort of inflict damage to yourself to gain several bonuses. So I guess her deal 2 damage to a random allied follower is to make up for her having more stats than a normal 3 drop. So I'm not sure. I think she's okay as a 3 drop, but the damage isn't exactly the most favorable thing to have. Because right now, HavenCraft is sort of changing with cards like Dark, Jean, and Zoe. It seems like HavenCraft is doing... It's sort of turning into Bloodcraft style where you deal damage to yourself to gain effects. Last time HavenCraft was heal yourself and gain bonuses. Now HavenCraft is deal damage to themselves and gain bonuses, so it's changing a little bit. So evil HavenCraft, I guess, but I don't know. So next we have Caledonian Ball. It's a 6 cost 4/4. Understated, of course, but its skill, it has Rush, which makes it good for trading. And Fanfare, subtract 1 from the countdown of all allied amulets. So it's one of the more generic HavenCraft cards where you just subtract 1 from the countdown of all amulets, which is pretty good. And it has Rush, which helps to keep your board, keep the board clean and empty for your opponent. Yeah, generally I don't mind this card that much. It's definitely playable in some more amulet heavy decks in HavenCraft, so I don't mind it's generally a good and playable card. Nothing very special, but nothing bad either. So next you have a 5 cost 3/5 Gravekeeper Sonia. A little bit understated. She has Ward though, and Fanfare. If there are no other allied followers in play, this follower gains +1/+0 and can't be damaged by spells and effects. So basically, if you play her alone on the board, she becomes a 4/5 and she can't be damaged by spells and effects, so your opponent has to trade into her or force remove her using Dance of Death or something. So it's a good ward. It reminds me of Cleric Lancer from the first original classic card set. It's just a reliable ward that is difficult to clear for your opponent. So yeah, I do like this card a lot. I think she can be played in most HavenCraft decks as well, simply because HavenCraft, here it specifies there are no other allied followers in play, as amulets do not count. So any amulet will be won't affect her skill, so you can still pull off her full skill even though you have things like maybe the and Statue Seraph in play maybe, but it won't affect her. So I like her a lot. So next we have a 4 cost amulet, Iron Maiden. It has countdown 2, and at the end of your turn deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower, and it can't attack next turn. It's quite an interesting card, this one, because if you're going up against something like Bahamut, this card reminds me of the old Forest Craft mechanic, where it sometimes paralyzes some cards so the cards cannot attack. It's kind of similar with this card. Basically, for 2 turns, at the end of the turn, it deals 2 damage to a random enemy follower, and that enemy follower cannot attack the next turn. So it basically prevents that follower from attacking, stalls for some time for you, and does a little bit of damage to it at the same time. I think it's not too bad for its cost, because assuming if we split this up evenly, it's 2 costs for dealing 2 damage to a random enemy follower and preventing it from attacking next turn, which is pretty good. The only thing, this would be good against single targets, like maybe your opponent has just played Bahamut, then you can just use this card to paralyze it for the next few turns. Yeah, but against a more wider board, this card won't be as useful. So I think this card is good, but it's more situational more than anything. So maybe a few copies of it, maybe 1 to 2 copies. I don't think you should run 3 in most HavenCraft decks. So next we have Holy Bowman Kel. He's a 2 cost 2/2, the generic stat line, and his skill is whenever your leader's defense is restored, deal 2 damage to the enemy leader. So I'm thinking maybe the return of the Ilana Prayer deck, where basically you heal a lot and you deal a lot of damage. Because I think it's very feasible to set up an OTK for him if you add in cards like if you are able to get 2 of him in your hand, and then you play both copies of him followed by a few like 3 heals, you have done like 12 damage to your enemy's face, which is quite a huge amount. Not forgetting that if you already have Ilana Prayer on the board, you will have boosted his stats by quite a bit as well. So I think he would fit into the Ilana Prayer deck pretty well. And yeah, he's a general good 2-drop. He can even be run in non-Ilana Prayer decks, and I don't think I think he'll fit there in normal decks quite well as well, as long as you have the healing mechanic. So that's for him. I think I might try to revive the Ilana Prayer deck after the new expansion has come out. So following that, we have Pure Healer. She's a 4 cost 3/3, slightly understated. Her skill, Fanfare, restore 2 defense to an ally, or enhance 6, restore 2 defense to all allies instead. So I think she's a pretty good card. Once again, she plays to the healing mechanic, which reminds me of Ilana Prayer once more. Her enhanced 6 is pretty useful if you want to make your board slightly, you want to reinforce your board or make it stronger. Then I think her enhanced 6 skill is going to be very useful. But I think most people play her for the her original fanfare, assuming you're playing Ilana Prayer, because once you heal your leader, everything else gets +1/+1. So she's a good card, but once again situational, because if you do want to use her enhanced 6, you need to have a board in you need to have a pretty decent board in order to get full value out of it. So she's good, but yeah, she's just good. She fits in some decks, but I think more towards the healing Ilana Prayer deck. Generic decks, she would fit okay, but I'm not very sure. So next we have a 4-cost 3/4 Octo Bishop. Why is this card? Never mind, I won't question it. So it's 4-cost 3/4, slightly understated, but his skill at the end of your turn restore 3 defense to this follower. So basically he'll do well for trading, and if you can put a ward on him, he would be pretty good as well, because you can use him to trade off for, I don't know, some small follower, and then after at the end of the turn he'll restore his own health. Yeah, but honestly speaking though, I'm not very sure of how playable he'll be, because I can understand if he's useful in like turn 4, turn 5, but by turn 10, his usefulness wouldn't be that much. He won't be that useful anymore, so it's not a bad card, but I won't say it's a good card either. Honestly, I think a few quite HavenCraft decks can do without this card. Next, we have a 3-cost amulet, Candelabra of Prayers. Its skill, whenever you play an amulet, subtract 1 from its countdown. So what I'm thinking of is, if you manage to set up like 3 of these Candela of Prayers on the field before you even play anything, say you're playing an Enstatute Seraph deck, and you manage to get 3 of these Candelabra of Prayers down, the moment you play your Enstatute Seraph, it will already have been subtracted 3 times. Then you only need to subtract it 1 more time, and then you basically win the game. So definitely I'm thinking this could fit inside a Enstatute Seraph deck well. Also, for generic just amulet reliant HavenCraft decks, it can also work pretty well because it accelerates your it accelerates your countdowns. There you go, countdowns of amulets. So it works pretty well, and I think it's gonna be a very useful card. Would run it in most, if not all, HavenCraft decks. Lastly, we have Mist Shaman. It's a 2-cost 2/2, the usual. Fanfare, give an allied follower resistance to targeted enemy spells and effects. So once again, a very good skill for a 2-drop, because this, if you apply it to something like, where is it? If you can apply it to Gravekeeper Sonia, then basically your opponent can't even force remove it. They actually have to trade into it, or you can put it on. No, you can't put it on Heavenly Aegis because his skill doesn't even allow your own followers to target him for spell effects. But there are a lot of cards you can use his effect on, so to make it very annoying for your opponent to remove. Let's say you play down, what's a good 8-drop? Let's say you play down Bahamut, your opponent doesn't remove it, the next time you play him on Bahamut, then Bahamut simply, he has to trade into it because he can't target Bahamut with Dance of Death or whatnot anymore. So definitely a very good card, which I will probably be playing in all of my HavenCraft decks. So that ends it for the HavenCraft review, and on to the last part of Neutral.